following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zig Zag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, across the moat from Oakland, in the northern part of the great state of California. And I promise my audience something that I deliver on a regular basis. I talk to the most interesting folks on the planet. Today is no exception. First-time guest, Barbara Rue. How are you?
I'm terrific. Funny story, you're in Alameda, and
yes.
We live off of the Alameda Court, which is funny.
Oh, okay, that's your street address.
We live off of Alameda. Yes,
okay.
That's the street we live off of, yes.
That's terrific. What city are you in?
I'm in Bowie, Maryland, which is if you think about a triangle, the top part would be Baltimore. The bottom part of the triangle would be Annapolis, and the other side of the triangle would be Washington, D.C., and Bowie would be smack dab in the middle of the triangle.
Okay, I got you covered. Is it snowy there today, rainy,
sunny?
It's
beautiful. No, it's in the 60s.
Beautiful. Nice way to spend the winter day.
Absolutely.
60 degrees.
Absolutely, and it's going to be a full moon tonight, and I'm a Cancer, so that's good.
Oh, okay. Better that you are than you have it. That's for sure. Little silly humor. Barbara, I'll tell you why I'm excited about you as a guest. You wrote a book, a children's book, and I spent 2 or 3 years running a nonprofit called People Care for Daycare, and it was designed to help child care centers that are in such desperate need of helping the kids. We would provide books and winter clothing, but primarily books. We'd have neighborhood drives, that sort of thing, and delivered a lot of books to Head Start programs and child care centers and the like. So a book on children, a book designed for children, interests me. You've been my Facebook friend. I love your attitude about life. So it's my privilege to have you. I'm going to try to learn and have my audience learn as much about you as possible. To do that, I ask 2 simple questions. What did you read as a kid, and what music did you listen to?
Well, I have to explain a couple things. What I read as a kid had a great deal to do with the fact that my father was vice president at one point of ALA, which is the American Library Association. So,
oh, wow.
So we would have books and books and books in the house because when the ALA conventions happened, many, many booksellers would come and actually give away. They would have authors. They're signing their books, and they would just give them away. And my dad would come home with literally bags full of books, and they would be fine books. And in our house, when you got your library card, it was treated as a birthday. So, because it was a once-in-a-lifetime event. So You got to say exactly what you did for the whole day. You got to choose your 3 meals. If you wanted to do a day trip, you could do that. It was treated as a birthday. It was a big event in our house. And I really wish that a lot of families would adopt the same practice, because I think it would encourage kids to read. It would say, hey, we are so proud of you for getting a library card. This is really a special event in your life. It would be so wonderful.
That is a wonderful idea, to make a party to celebrate that day. That's wonderful. What did your dad and mom do avocationally?
Well, my mom was a stay-at-home mother until I went into high school, and then she went back to school, and then she became an X-ray tech. And my dad worked for the Department of Education in their library funding area, and he was in charge of a lot of the funding for federal libraries, and that's what my dad did. And then when he retired, he became very, very much more involved in ALA, which is the American Library Association.
Right.
And that's when he became a vice president in the Washington, Seattle area, I think. My dad's passed, so I can't ask him.
Oh, no. My condolences.
But again, as he always went to the ALA conventions. As a kid, I don't know if your readers are familiar with a series called All of a Kind Family. And basically, it's 5 girls. It was written by a woman named Sydney Taylor, but that wasn't her real name. And it was 5 Jewish little girls who grew up in turn-of-the-century New York and their adventures. And it was actually based on her family. There were actually 7 in her family, 5 girls, 2 boys. But the adventures were around 5 girls. She was the Sarah character in All of a Kind Family, and I think there are 5 books in this series. But that was one of my, and it's wonderful for anybody, not just Jewish kids, but for anybody, because it talks about how the Jewish holidays are celebrated, and a non-combative way. Nobody is trying to convert anybody. It's just answering a lot of questions. It's a wonderful series of books. Of course, I loved Charlotte's Web, and I loved all of the Winnie the Pooh books. And I was a sick kid. I was born premature, almost 3 months premature, as a matter of fact. And
actually,
spent
prematurely,
the first,
if you were technical, if you were a grammar queen like myself. I'm sorry. How were you affected in life by that?
Well, I was sick a lot as a kid and missed a lot of school. And sometimes books get heavy. So I did get a lot of my books. They have, the Library of Congress has a free service. Now it's you can download books on the computer, but at the time, you got big, heavy boxes of actual records, and you listen to books on records, and then later you listen to books on tape. And so I did a lot of that, and I absolutely fell in love with Sebastian Cabot's voice. He did, of course, the narrator for all the Winnie the Pooh books. So I love that, and that started my interest in old television. And I work for an organization, I volunteer for an organization called A Minor Consideration. And what we do is look after the interests of children in the entertainment industry. I'm sure you're familiar with Paul Peterson and the work that he does.
Paul Peterson was from,
the Donna Reed show.
Donna Reed, yes.
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 Yeah, so he himself was a kid actor.
And
so
there's a high preponderance of kids that end up very, very, very much in trouble, very much screwed by the system. Either their parents get money that never gets to the kid or what have you. An awful lot of child actors and actresses who have had tough times.
Yes. Yes. So a lot of those people have been on our board. We look out, but we make sure that doesn't happen again. That we worked with the SAG and AFTRA and instituted some new laws so that kind of thing can't happen as often anymore.
Right. I remember Father Knows Best, and there was a child actor named Gray, Stephen Gray, or
Billy Gray.
Billy Gray, okay.
Yeah, I think you're talking about Billy Gray, and he was on Father Knows Best. He played Bud.
And he was one of those kids that really had some problems in life.
Yes, he did.
And
yeah, I know Billy. He's good people.
Oh, really?
Yes, Billy.
That's very, very nice, the work that you're doing to prevent stuff like that happening in the future.
Well, going back to when I was a sick kid, I had several operations, and one of them was correcting the tendons in my feet, and I had casts all the way up to almost the top of my thighs, and I was in these casts for an entire summer.
Oh, wow.
And I promised myself, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I promised myself, because at the time, Bobby Sherman, Donny Osmond, and David Cassidy were all popular. This was in the early 70s. They were at the height of their popularity. But I promised myself I was going to meet all of them. Wasn't sure how I was going to do it quite yet, but it's something I did achieve, and then some. Because if you look at my friends list, you'll see a lot of former actors and actresses that I know. And they're not just Facebook friends. I know these people. And I've been very, very lucky that I was able to keep that promise to myself. But I want to get back to my book. My book is called Owen the Oriole Bird, not the Oriole baseball player. Owen the Oriole, a Chesapeake Bay adventure. And Owen is a little mixed up. He's just a little chick. And what he sees some boys and girls being really mean to an egg and hitting the egg with a stick. Can you imagine such a thing? And he gets really mad, and he decides he's going to save that egg and get it back into the nest before these mean boys and girls crack it. And he's going to see to it that the egg hatches so he can have a friend. But what he doesn't know, it's not an egg. It's a baseball. And the stick is a bat. So the story is all of the misadventures of Owen trying to save what he thinks is an egg. And instead, of course, it turns out to be a baseball. And the end, and I'm not going to spoil it for your listeners there, but the end is kind of exciting because Owen is a hero at the end of the book. And I am working on book number 2. And
what
book number 2.
What an imagination. Were you a baseball fan?
Excuse me?
I said you have a terrific imagination. Were you a baseball fan?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I'm not a sports person at all.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a funny story. when I was in physical therapy at Kernan Hospital, there was a gentleman, a very, 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 very tall gentleman, who was having physical therapy next to me. And I had no idea who he was, but I was told that he was some kind of a sports player. And so the physical therapist thought it would be a great joke on me to tell me that this gentleman played baseball. Now, I know really not a lot about sports. So and we were sitting side by side together in wheelchairs waiting for a therapy. So I started to talk to him about baseball. Well, turns out that this very, 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 very tall gentleman didn't play baseball. He played basketball. But he wanted to know why I was asking him all of these baseball questions. And you know what? I just had a darn hiccup because I can't remember the nice man's name, but I will. If I remember, then I'll send it to you, and you can tell people.
Okay.
But he was quite famous. He played for the Celtics team, and now I cannot remember his name. And isn't that awful?
Was it Bill Russell?
I think that's the gentleman's name.
Whoa, very cool.
But he he thought he had a good laugh because he tried to explain to me. He said, I don't play baseball. I play basketball. So that's about as much as I know about baseball.
I tell you, I'll bet he's talking about this story as well. The nice woman that
well, no, I was
a
little kid.
Yeah.
I was a little kid. I was 11.
Ah, okay. I get you now. So,
I really didn't know. I was 11. This was at Kernan Hospital. I was 11 years old. I was stupid,
I appreciate sports worshiping from a kid's standpoint, and even if you don't worship, it's a great story. Barbara, how did you come to write a book after all these years?
Well, that's easy too. My co-author, Cindy Freeland, and I were having lunch, and she mentioned, I have a lot of girl books. If you ever have an idea for a boys' book, I really need to write another boys' book. And I said, well, I have a kernel of an idea. What if? And she said, let's go with it, and we wrote the book.
Wow. Now, what was, once you wrote it, what's the procedure to get it published?
Well, the book is self-published. Cindy had, I think this is either her 9th or her 10th book. Cindy has a relationship with a publication that does self-publishing. So she had published scads of books before. So she knew all about it and how to do it and how to go about it. She also had worked with our illustrator before. Our illustrator is in England, and she's wonderful. The illustrations in Owen, one of the things that when your readers look at the book, I insisted that there is a baseball game in the book. And it's the Chestertown Cheetahs. Chestertown being a city in Maryland. And there is all kinds of information about Chestertown. Chestertown actually had its own Tea Party before the Boston Tea Party, only the Chestertown residents didn't dress up like Indians. They just went on the ship and dumped the tea. And there is a parade and a celebration on Memorial Day weekend, every weekend in Chestertown, Maryland. commemorating the Chestertown Tea Party. So if people are interested, they can look up the Chestertown Tea Party and see all of the goings on that are going to happen in Chestertown. But Owen's Nest is in Chestertown, and I insisted that the two umpires in the last part of the book, and again, I'm not spoiling the end, but I insisted that one of the umpires be a lady and one of them be a gentleman. So in my book, there is a lady umpire. A lot of schools don't have lady coach umpires, and I thought that it was really important for both boys and girls to see that ladies could be an umpire.
Nice.
So we do that. We do that, especially since, of course, today is International Women's Day. So I want to make sure that gets some notice.
Okay. Boy, you have your plate full. What's the next book about?
Okay, well, the next book is called Biddy Bat. And Biddy Bat is the runt of the litter. He's just a little teeny bat. He's just a small guy. And Ian, who is his human, is injured in a car accident with his uncle. And the thing that Ian likes to do best in the world is go out on his uncle's boat. His uncle is a waterman, and his uncle dredges for oysters and brings in crab pots. But, of course, Ian is injured in the accident, and he winds up having to be in a wheelchair. So he's not able to be on his uncle's boat anymore. But his uncle rigs up a two-way radio so that Ian can monitor the weather report, because when his uncle is dredging for oysters or bringing in crab pots, he's not always listening to the weather. He's not always real tuned into things. So what Ian and his uncle don't know is that the radio has a short, and the short messes with Biddy Bat's sonar. So every time Ian messages his uncle, Biddy Bat thinks he's being called. So Ian notices that a bat comes to the window a lot of times. So Ian starts leaving out good things that bats like to eat. You know, bats like bits of banana. I don't know if you knew that, but they do.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So Ian leaves out bits of banana for Biddy Bat. And Biddy Bat starts bragging to his bat friends and his owl friends and some of the other nocturnal friends that he has, including this big old funny gray cat, that he's got a human who lives in a people zoo. And his human leaves out good things for him to eat. And, of course, none of the bats believe him. You can't have a human who lives in a people zoo. And Ian says, well, more than that, my people has funny legs, because, you see, bats don't know what wheelchairs are. And so next time Biddy Bat's sonar goes off, he says, my people is calling me. You come and you see that there isn't something good for me to eat outside of the people zoo. So all of his friends, including the owl friend and the big gray cat, and some of his bat friends go to the people zoo, because, you see, that's what bats call houses. And they see that a bit of banana is on the ledge for him. And they go, my goodness, you do have a people, and your people does have funny legs. So they believe him. And this goes on for a while, and you hear about some of the weather forecasts, the broadcasts that Ian makes to his uncle, and you hear about some of the catches, some of the oysters that his uncle was able to dredge up, and some of the crabs that he's able to bring in on the crab pots. And then one day, Biddy Bat's called. And, oh, my gosh, he looks in the people zoo, and his people's legs fell off. And the little boy Ian fell out of the wheelchair. And what in the world is Biddy Bat going to do? How is he going to help his people? His legs fell off. And then you're going to have to read the book to see what Biddy Bat does.
Oh, wow. When is that book going to be published?
It's coming along. We were hoping for the spring, but I think now it's going to be the fall.
Okay. May I ask you a little bit about your writing style? How do you write things down when they occur to you, or do you have a set appointment with yourself to do some writing? How do you do your craft?
Okay. Well, first of all, you have to know that I'm dyslexic. So
okay.
I dictate my book into something called Dragon Naturally Speaking, which is a dictation program for the computer.
Okay.
And it's commercially available to anybody. It's good for people with a little bit of arthritis. It's good for people who are dyslexic. I'm very verbal, but my dyslexia, it manifests itself sometimes. You could not, for love or money, tell me that the and the were the same word. You couldn't. I kept wanting to spell the THA because that's the way it sounded. That's the way my dyslexia manifests itself. I want to spell things literally. So I dictate, and what I do is I let my characters speak in my head. I hear them tell me what they want me to tell. They want me to say they said. So when Biddy Bat talks to me, or when Ian talks to me, or when Uncle Dave talks to me, I listen, I dictate, and that's how I write.
Wow. You actually, can you depend on these voices to come up at a regular time? Or do you conjure them up, so to speak?
Well, a lot of times, it's things like I'll be commuting and looking out the window and thinking about absolutely nothing, and then Biddy Bat will speak up and say, "Hey, you need to say that I said this." It just not everybody writes this way, but this is how it happens for me.
Okay.
Now,
when you write with other people, do the voices come up as well?
Well, what I do is I put my part down, and I give my part to Cindy, and then she'll put her part down.
Okay.
We're not writing in tandem. We're kind of writing as partners.
Right. And then who does the editing?
Cindy does the editing because, again, I'm dyslexic. So what looks right to me might not be, even though, thank God, now we have something, we have, the lovely editor that you can use in Word. But again, if it might not look right to me, but it's right. So I leave the editing to her.
Wow. Dyslexia manifests itself in all kinds of different ways. I have a cousin who was not only did she have dyslexia, but she was bulimic. And,
boy, what a combination!
What a combination! She would get sick before meals. So but she's okay now.
Well,
okay.
That's good. I'm so glad. And we just a couple of weeks ago, or maybe even last week, celebrated the anniversary of Karen Carpenter's birth.
Oh, yes.
And she,
another one. Not a Nasher, Karen Carpenter. I think that's can be pretty much a fact without having known her. Did you? Great singer, absolutely a beautiful voice.
But her mother played favorites. Her mother's favorite was Richard, and nothing, absolutely nothing Karen could do could please her mother. And that's what started the anorexia.
I had no idea about that. I'm shocked.
There's a wonderful book called Little Girl Blue, and I'll have to send you the name. And he's a Facebook friend, but it's a wonderful, wonderful biography of Karen. And he interviewed everybody he could possibly interview, having to do with Karen. I think he even spoke with Richard for a little bit, but everybody admits that Richard was the favorite, and there was nothing whatsoever that Karen could do to please her mother, and it ate away at her.
Yeah. Well, some of us in life have trouble pleasing our mothers. That's
now
just
you
a fact.
let me ask you something. You sound like you are not a native Californian. You sound like you're from New York.
No, I am originally from New York, and I'm living in California. All old Jews are supposed to move to Florida. And,
well,
they'll never get
actually.
me. They
I was born in
the Catholic
Brooklyn.
Church to round up the Jews and move them to Florida, like they did in Poland back in the old days. They were good at getting Jews together, but that never worked out. Anyway, so I'm in California. I'm breaking the law. I'm a scofflaw.
Now, I was originally born in Brooklyn. We moved to Hyattsville, Maryland, when I was 3, and then we moved to Bowie when I was 5.
Oh, good.
So I've lived here a good long time.
Yes, I can imagine. Not a long time, but you're just a regular middle-aged person.
Right, that's exactly it, a regular middle-aged person.
All right.
But,
you're a delight.
Well, thank you.
I hope you will revisit these airwaves and let us know how the second book is coming. And
I will absolutely do that.
Beautiful. I hope you had fun.
I had a lot of fun. Thank you very, very much.
My pleasure, and the audience's pleasure. Barbara Rue from Maryland writes books for kids, makes kids happy. What kind of life is that? A wonderful one. Barbara, keep it up.
Thank you very much. You have a good afternoon.
Thanks for listening, everybody. I am Ralph Tycho. You have been comfortably zoned. Enjoy your day. Adios.
Bye-bye.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.